Hi, my name's Rose Schooler, and I lead data center and AI global sales at Intel. Thanks for joining us today for this fireside chat to talk about a topic that's really, really near and dear to my heart, and that's diversity in STEM. My engineering background made it possible for me to go from a small steel town in Pennsylvania to Silicon Valley and opened up so many doors. I recently joined Sandra Rivera, who's our Executive Vice President of our Data Center and AI Business Unit, on a similar chat to discuss diversity and inclusion in tech. We talked about how Intel and its partners invest in diversity from grassroots educational objectives and initiatives through our own internal efforts, as well as through our partners and with our customers. We also do sponsorship and mentorship activities and very targeted leadership programs. That's why I'm really, really passionate about paying my personal experience and my Intel experience forward. And in that vein, I am honored to serve as the executive sponsor of Intel's Black Network of Executive Women, which we will probably refer to through this conversation as BNEW. So with that, I am thrilled today to be joined by some amazing women of BNEW from Intel. So let's start with some introductions. Esma Mahasni is our principal engineer for product and silicon security architecture. Vernetta Dorsey is our Director of Product Security Governance, and Sherry Madison is a GM of our Partner Data and Operations team. So why don't we just start with something to get the juices flowing, ladies? So I'm gonna go left to right on the way I see you on the screen, and let's start with a question for Sherry. Tell us where you grew up, what your current role is at Intel, and kind of what you do in that role.
Okay.
One fun fact about Sherry.
So I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. For those who follow golf, that is where the Masters golf tournament is. So look at that, Rose has got a hat. So born and raised in Augusta, Georgia. Like you said, Rose, I'm the general manager of Partner Data and Operations, which probably you can't tell what that means. But what I really own is the digital experience for our partners, which is a type of customer that help us sell Intel products. And you said fun fact. So a fun fact about me is for 3 years when I was growing up, I went to a fine arts school. I majored in dance and I minored in acting. So, but I'm at Intel now.
Oh, okay. So just for all of you in the audience, I've known Sherry for an eternity, and I did not know that fun fact. So the next time we get together, we're gonna do some dancing.
We will. I love to dance.
Come out.
Yes.
Okay, Esma, same question to you. Where you grew up, your current role, and a fun fact.
Absolutely. I grew up in Casablanca, Morocco. My family immigrated to South Florida when I was in high school. I have 2 siblings. I'm a middle child, and I was the very first one in my family, immediate family of 5 to finish high school. Then my younger sister, Sophia, followed suit after that and got through college as well. And I think a lot about that, you know, and I feel very lucky as, you know, I find myself in Silicon Valley. I find myself in this panel with you all. Right now I'm working in computer security. Many of you, I'm sure you hear about cyber attacks and the impact they can have on all of us. My role is to secure the computing foundation that Intel provides, and that can go into any sort of computing, personal computers, the data center, or even, you know, industrial applications. So my job really is to connect the dots across threats that we're seeing, user needs, and system and computer architecture so that we can stay ahead of attacks and threats. One fact about me is I love dancing, Sherry. I have known you for a while, and I didn't know that you love dancing. I danced a lot while I was in Florida. I graduated from Simone Salsa School in Tampa Bay, and I'm very, very proud of that degree. When I moved to Oregon and started working at Intel, I taught Zumba on the Intel campus. And then, you know, when I got pregnant with my twins, Sammy and Maya, I sort of resigned, and now they're 5, so I'm taking hip hop classes and trying to, you know, stay up to date with my dancing skills. But that's me.
Oh my God, I see a dance party in the future.
Dance party.
Yes.
We're having a dance party. A little fun fact, Sherry and I, when we used to get to go to the office, we would have dance parties.
In the office. I'll just break it down a little bit.
Go break it down. Vernetta,
Yes.
how about you? Where you grew up, current role, and a fun fact.
Yeah, so I grew up in Decatur, Georgia, just about 2 hours east of Augusta, Georgia, born and raised there. And I spent many years in Augusta, actually, in a different lifetime. I'm the director of security governance at Intel. And what that means really is that all of the things that we ask our developers and engineers to do to help prevent the hackers from such easy access to our product is these basic things that we ask them to do and check what, and make sure that they have that incorporated in their design and build. My fun fact about myself is that I'm a hip hop DJ. So
yes.
Oh my gosh, this is the greatest selection of panelists in a fireside chat I have ever seen. We are gonna do some dancing after this is over. I love it. And Vernetta is gonna be our DJ.
We should get some music queued up for the end.
I think so. I think I might be able to do that. So I'm gonna stay with you, Vernetta. What attracted you to the technology industry?
You know, back in elementary school, I remember that the first computers were coming in. I think we had in my school there was one computer, I think it was an Atari or Commodore 64 or something that was I was like, what is that thing? You know, what is that? And so I wanted to stay with that. When I got to high school, we didn't have computer classes. We just had, typewriting or whatever, typing. And that was the closest I could get. So, but then when I got to college, I zoned in on computer science. That's my actual major. And I did computer science, did programming in college. And I stayed with anything that had electrons flowing through it out when I left college. I joined the military and I was a telecommunications officer. So that was everything from telephone wire to satellite comms, LAN, secured, unsecured, all that kind of stuff. So it has always been something I've been zoned into. I love Star Trek. I grew up on watching Star Trek and Star Wars, all of this futuristic things. I mean, if I say the word, my Alexa will go off. But I have, if you know the line in Star Trek, they don't say, what's the line they say? They say computer, she's gonna go off. But that's I've always been into this. This is my thing from day one. So my sister's influence making me watch Star Trek, I think, is how I landed here to stay on top and where we're going. And I think that's what this gives me.
That's really cool. I had a Commodore too. That was my introduction, which is crazy. Esma, how about you?
My situation, I entered the tech industry totally by accident. I mentioned I'm an immigrant to the US, so I didn't really have a role model or someone in my family that understood how to navigate the college system, let alone, understand what SATs are or how to even pick a major. So I was pretty clueless. I finished high school and I spent the year after high school working at a bakery. I'd wake up and start there at 5 a.m. And I would actually spend the rest of the day working at Office Depot. And I saw an opening for Office Depot store manager, and I knew I liked hanging around computers and printers and cartridges way more than I did hanging out in the bakery. And I applied for the store manager position, which of course I didn't get. And I took that rejection very personally. So I had saved enough money to buy a used car. I went to community college and enrolled as a business major. I kept my job in the bakery because I had a supportive boss, and it was a great place to network as well with people. But I ended up going to community college, studying business, and it wasn't until the very last week of finishing up my associate's degree in business, I went to get my final scores, and my business calculus professor said, "You had the highest score across all of my calculus classes. You should consider engineering." That comment changed everything. The very next day, I walked into the dean's office. It was a spring semester. And I said, "I'd like to try for engineering, but I'd like to make it quick and painless. I'm going to take as many classes as I can this summer so that I can start transferring to University of South Florida." And I ended up getting the waiver, and I took physics and calculus and chemistry and biology. I finished that course load in the summer. It was just what I needed to get the confidence and feel like I actually belong. And I transferred to University of South Florida the following semester as a pre-engineering student. The very first thing I did when I went to USF, I walked into this event by the Society of Women Engineers, and they had an engineering manager from Baxter Healthcare talking about internship and job opportunities. And I wasn't even, I was not even a freshman in engineering or considered a freshman in engineering. I talked to the manager, his name is Diego, afterwards, and I said, "Look, I just started this engineering thing, but I really like hands-on and I like to work. So if there is an internship opportunity, please let me know." And I followed up with an email a week later, and the following spring, I ended up as a research and development intern at Baxter Healthcare in their hemodialysis division. And I had all my electives, so I started studying a degree in mechanical engineering, and the rest was history. So that experience had led me to land my full-time engineering job. I could see how engineering applied in real world, and I ended up getting a graduate degree after that, and now I'm finding myself at Intel. So it's just been a journey by accident.
Wow, I'm inspired by your story, and I wish I had my notebook. I'd take notes from there, because I would write down simple statements. No goal is too big, and it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And you
Absolutely.
and throw a little hustle in there, and look where Esma's at. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. Back to you, Sherry. What attracted you to tech?
Esma's story was fascinating. I can tell you, I didn't seek it out. I used to work in the consumer products industry. You know, like I was at a soap company and other consumer products. So I didn't seek it out. And what happened was, in the Phoenix area, you had all of these young Black professionals working at Dial Corporation, which is where I was, and Intel and Motorola and Allied Signal, and we all hung out together. And I found myself laid off after 2 years at that soap company. But that was my tribe of people. Bernetta was talking about her tribe, and I called them up. I knew somebody, one of my friends in this group worked in staffing at Intel, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, I just got laid off." And she said, "Oh, I got a hot job for you." She said, "I don't know if you're gonna get it, because this manager has been through 3 or 4 rounds of interviewing people. She hasn't liked anybody, but send me your resume." And I think within 2 days, I had a job interview. And same day, I got a call after the interview that I had the job. So that's how I ended up at Intel and specifically in tech. But I was always good at science and math. I loved science and math growing up. But I graduated with a business degree. But I can tell you, since I've been at Intel, I have really sort of fallen in love with, how technology can make a difference in society, and at the individual level in people's lives as well. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to Esma. So we work for a giant company. I mean, Intel is a big company, 100-ish thousand employees. You walk in your first day and here you are many years later, successful. What tools, tricks, advice would you have for people on how to navigate a large global company?
But find something that you care about, something that will get you fired up in the morning. I would say, especially working in a very large corporation, if you don't care about the products, then maybe you care about people, right? Whether that's people inside the company or people that use the product. What's been helpful for me personally sometimes, it's find someone in the company and try to genuinely help them. That'll spark the fire, right? Because it is a marathon. And yeah, of course, we will run, at a steam along the way. And this has been, something very near and dear to my heart, because one of my biggest values is joy, right? We're a panel that loves dancing. So if I'm not having fun along the way, I know something is out of alignment. And I have to have at least one thing that I'm enjoying at any given time. Sometimes it's the problems that I'm solving. Sometimes it's the people that I'm working with. And sometimes it's just learning something new and challenging myself. If those things align, then great, but they don't always do. So for me, it's just, I need to have at least one of them. And I would say, don't do it alone. Whether you call it networking, community, I think it's very important to recognize that, yeah, it's your career, but you need to get others involved. It's a project, right? It's teamwork. And that has, that opened up doors for opportunities, but it's not only that, right? Sometimes it's just needing to vent, needing to have somebody hear me, needing to get my thoughts clarified. Those are very, very important things, right? It's about finding someone who's going to help you to get the next opportunity, but just having a community, safe space to just be. And that's, that helps fuel the passion and move us forward.
What type of communities have you leveraged to start building those network and connections so you could, address the people side of your response?
They come in all forms and shapes, because when I first joined Intel, I ran into my friend, mentor, a person that I admire a lot, Lakeisha Gunther. So Lakeisha is, she grew up in Tampa Bay, and that's where I spent my, time, and we went to the same undergrad school. And I remember Lakeisha telling me, hey, you need to come to this network of African Americans at Intel. You need to come to our events. And I kind of hesitated. I was just joining Intel, but I started attending the events. I started meeting people, and I felt, that was family for me. Like, that was, for the longest time, those people were family. We can just it had nothing to do about the day job, but we could just have conversations. We can laugh around the hallways. And for a while, I was teaching Zumba. The people at the gym, I love that, right? It had nothing to do about work. We could just be ourselves, forget your manager, forget your responsibilities. Let's just be. And believe it or not, that dance class had opened up opportunities for me. So it's just, I think, being authentic about how you do it, and also being genuine with people helps along the way. And that's what I would call community.
I love that. How about you, Vernetta? How have you found a way to navigate this giant company called Intel?
I think similarly, I was going to mention finding tribe, right? In historically, whenever I move from company to company, it's been that. So whether it's from the employee resource groups like NIA or any of the other ones, or also finding like similar opportunities for volunteering. That's another space where you take advantage of the volunteer opportunities. You can meet people that are vested in the same types of things you are outside of work, which has been great. And then as well as similar interest inside the team, but that's a little bit more close. But I think I like the tribe, finding your tribes for the different areas. And companies as big as Intel, there's so many opportunities to do that. And so I've had lots of lasting friendships that I've made through those spaces in the company.
That's fantastic. How about you, Sherry? How are you navigating your way, and how have you navigated your way through Intel?
So I agree with everything that Esma and Vernetta said. I think also for me, I've always been a person that's been able to sort of try to see things from the other person's perspective, or to put myself in someone else's shoes. And where you're talking about, you know, a large multinational corporation, and you've got all of these different people working together and different cultures working together, just trying to understand things from their point of view is probably one of the things that helped me navigate.
That's a great tip for us, Sherry. Okay, let's stick with Sherry for one more. Let's keep it rolling. Okay, one more. Talk a bit about how at Intel there's the space for you to show up as your authentic self.
So I think somebody was talking about the employee resource groups before. Those are company sponsored. And I do think that that's a way that sort of gives people the ability to sort of build a community or be part of a community that, you know, is more like them, and give you that room to breathe, and you gain that confidence as you're working in your day-to-day job. Also, one of the things that I really loved, you know, like all companies, you know, there's been this challenge around diversity and inclusion. But one of the things that I love about Intel is the fact that, you know, we've been open about being on this journey for years now, and not that our numbers from a diversity or representation perspective were that much greater than other companies in the tech industry, but we were really open about the data. We took that leadership position for the industry and said, hey, this is important for us. We're going to share our data. We're working on it. And there's always been some kind of focus, whether it's been training and education, you know, unconscious bias training, inclusive leadership training, talking about creating psychologically safe environments. So that sort of continued focus, it may not always be where I personally want it to be, but that does give you the confidence to sort of be authentic and show up. And, you know, I also teach those inclusive leaders classes. And so I take that on my shoulders to try to influence others within the organization to create those psychologically safe environments and be more inclusive in how they manage and how they lead.
And I will tell you, you all probably don't know that might be listening, but Sherry and I were on the same staff for a very long time. And I very much appreciated the honesty and the inclusiveness that she not only supported, but demanded. And I don't mean that in a non-productive way at all, but she was very honest with me when I would say something that might be not the most inclusive statement. And personally, as a constantly developing leader, I was incredibly appreciative of the honesty and the focus that she brought to creating that psychologically safe environment within our workplace. So Vernetta, how about you? How does Intel make room for you to be your authentic self?
That's a great question. I will tell a little story about my interview to Intel, which had me in hook, line, and sinker, because I was coming from the financial industry, which is a very different type of workplace environment. So for my interview, when I flew out to Oregon for my interview, and my interviewer had on plaid shirt and jeans for the interview, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, wait, that's what we're doing? I was like, oh, sign me up, because I am a casual person. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is excellent. This is what we can do. And so from that moment on, and to Sherry's point, with all of the employee resource groups, being able to find my tribes and have those representative and be heard and be welcomed, right, genuinely. And the other thing that sold me about Intel and about being inclusive was, to the same point about that stand, that public stand. When I first joined, I've only been at Intel about 7 years. And when I first joined, it was right after, I think it was BK that made some announcement in a public forum. It was right at that same time. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe we can go there and see what's happening in that space. And I felt that the whole time I've been here. And again, finding the right tribe, finding that capability to communicate and have it be welcomed and land and listen. And so it has been very easy for me to navigate. And it's actually the first employer I've been to where I've been truly all of myself, all of the time in the same workspace. So I find that very welcoming and attractive for a company.
Thank you so much for that. How about you, Esma?
I agree with everything, Sherry and Vernetta, you put it, so well together and captured it well. Maybe I'll add slightly different perspective. For me, it's the ability to have diverse opportunities, right? I've had multiple jobs and careers at Intel, and I didn't even, same laptop, right? So that in itself, as a person who likes systems and systems thinking, that is a way for me to bring my whole self to work and not be judged because I moved from this area to another area. So that's been fascinating for me. Also coaching opportunities, development opportunities, that's just been very fascinating. And in fact, even the people inside of Intel, some of my very early engineering jobs were in extremely male-dominated environments, right? I was in a machine shop environment at some point. So when I walked into Intel, right, to the cafeteria at Intel, I thought, what are you talking about, right? I can, it's never perfect, but still I can, I see people that I can relate to. I see these employee resource groups, and we're starting to have more open conversation about, what's going right, what's not going right, and what do we do about it. So for me, it's just a combination of all these factors that makes me feel like I'm included, I'm heard, and people are willing to listen, right, and change things. If you bring up a problem to the table, people will certainly listen, and you can certainly enlist people and try to get us going on a solution path.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going back to Vernetta. Okay, I got a good one for you.
Okay.
What are some of the changes that you've experienced since you've been in the workforce, not just at Intel? And what changes would you still like to see?
Changes in the workplace itself.
Yeah, changes for the good, and then ones that we still got to work on.
Oh, that is a good question. Wow. I think from a couple of different industries. So I mentioned I was in the military. So I'm just going to say one of the biggest changes I've seen that happened from when I was in the military to now is Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed. So that's an hallelujah moment. From other changes in the workplace, for me, just the inclusivity of the conversation, to be okay to talk about other parts of your life, especially here at Intel. We had a lot of conversations around when the world was kind of falling apart and breaking down. We actually had conversations about that in the workplace and the fact that it's impactful and it impacts how you show up at work. So that was huge. and honestly, we haven't really touched the C word, but I think COVID enabled that conversation to actually occur, because it softened a lot of people, to slow them down and stopped, and they had to actually think about wholesale. And I found that to be incredible. And then a third major shift in the workplace, is another COVID enabler, is the work from home fact that, you know what, people can do that successfully. I've seen it in other industries, maybe 10 years back, but I think this whole scale related to, for the jobs that can, it allowed people to see that, hey, this is an actual viable thing we should investigate more, and we should meet talent where it is. If it's not required to come to the office, we should go get that talent wherever it is, go after it.
Thank you. Sherry, how about you? Good changes you've seen and ones you'd still like to see happen?
Oh, so, one of the things when you asked that question, the thing that popped into my mind was, we talked a little bit about employee resource groups, and those are company sponsored, but you'd have a meeting within this group. So imagine, it's a conference room full of women, or it's a conference room full of Black people. And when people would walk past and glance into the window of the door of the conference room, they do a double take, like, what's happening there? And you can see sometimes, and this was early in my career, you'd see sometimes some concern or confusion that cross people's faces. And I think one of the indicators that you see now is you don't really see that much anymore. It's not odd for there to be a group of women, meeting together in a conference room. So that's one of the other things that I think, I've seen happen over time. The representation has increased, and it's also increased in terms of the number of generations that are in the workplace at the same time. And I absolutely love that, because you've got this rich experience that's there. And then you've got sort of this new, fresh face, right out of college, people that, are so idealistic and, and they're convicted in the way that they think the world should be, and you bring that together. And honestly, I think it leads to more optimal outcomes. So in addition to what Bernetta said, those are a couple of other things.
That's great. How about you, Esma?
In terms of what has changed, we're still learning how to have a productive conversation about workplace diversity and inclusion, right? Inclusion is the one that we're still really working on. I think having data is very helpful, but when it comes to real world project, as people start progressing in their careers, how you get tapped for opportunities, I think that's an area that could certainly still use some improvement. Something that makes me very hopeful is, as I see new hires and new college grads, is just the amount of confidence, right? It's because I would see a Black person here and there, right? And it's just like, it's like you said, Sherry, people will look, right? They look, they kind of stand out a little bit. But I just love how confident people are showing up to work, and that's just very inspiring. I feel like there is definitely something that's changing for the better. So I would say some things that I would like to see in the future, as any leader will tell you, and especially those of us that are women and the represented groups, we spend a lot of time in coaching and what we call soft skills, learning a lot of things to improve our leadership, to improve how we show up, to improve our presence, our storytelling, all of those wonderful opportunities. I would like to see majority groups spend time doing those types of things, right? Because it is additional time that we invest in our careers on top of our day job. And it would be wonderful to see the majority group also investing a big chunk of their times learning more about inclusion. And, I know there are a lot of trainings and things out there, but I would just like to see the same level of time and commitment as well from different groups.
And let me lean in on that a little bit more. Yeah, I would be so bold to say, stop training the minority populations.
Yes.
You know, let's start training everybody, but focus in those discussions, I think, on the majority populations as well. The focus is always, you know, how do I increase my brand presence? You know, and all of these things. How do I get along better in the broader workforce? We really get overtrained, and it's a lot of targeted training towards the minority population, which really I think ought to be, like Esma said, the investment should be on that majority side as well. And then one other fun fact I thought about in terms of what's changed, that the range of hairstyles of Black women, you know, that Black women's hair is a thing. People feel a lot more free now to, if they want to wear their hair natural, wear it natural. Vernetta, my sister. And, you know, and I think that is also just a very visible difference of what you would see before, years ago versus now.
Yeah, and Sherry is a role model. A number of hairstyles, and I know when Sherry's going on vacation because her braids come out, and right. I love it. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Okay, I have personally been blessed with just more sponsors and mentors as a technical female in my career than I ever could begin to cover or mention. I mean, I literally have a slide that I keep adding faces to, and I'm running out of space. And it covers men and women, senior people, people I worked for, people that worked for me, broad brush. Vernetta, how has sponsorship and mentorship played a role in your career?
Wow, I mean, it's so critical because it's a two-way street. You can bring things to someone and they can take things from you, and it's a partnership. I will say, when I got out of the military, I was hired onto Bank of America by a woman named Patty Watson. She's in the tech field, outstanding person, and she invested in me for my entire career, even still to this day, and we're not in the same company. And so it's so critical, right? And as you move forward, I've made sure that I mentor as many people as I can, know that it's a door that's always open, reaching out for that sounding board. Sometimes you just need to have a different perspective. And sometimes you do need specific guidance, and having a diverse set of people to go after, I think, is so important. So I have older sisters. I've used other tech folks in the field, other non-tech folks, right? To get that disparate glance of what's going on in the industry. Super important. I love it. And it's an actual great partnership that you learn not only about yourself, but about people and what drives them, which then helps you in itself as well. So I'm a high supporter of that. Sponsorship, I think, is awesome, and I love it all. So.
How about you, Esma?
I reflect back on my story from that bakery, back when I didn't even know what a sponsor is or what a mentor is, but I said I kept that job while going to community college. The bakery owner, Steve and Gloria, were my advocates, right? Because they knew I wasn't happy with my situation. So customers would come in and they say, Esma's going for a business degree. If you have some office work, she really needs a break. And it led to an office manager job, actually, while I was there. So that was that's how I was introduced to advocacy. When I met Diego Lasso as the engineering manager and gave me my first internship, he was a great advocate and mentor. I still talk with Diego until this day. And as I entered Intel, I have more than I can count in terms of mentors and sponsors and just people that I feel safe with and I can use as a sounding board, like you said, Vernetta. One of the things that I realized is, you have to give back. So that Society of Women Engineers experience at USF shaped my life. So I ran for a suite president at USF and served while I was a junior in college. And at Intel, it's part of why I love being at Intel. I was on a team, engineering team with 4 Black inspiring women engineers. And the hands-on coaching when you work with people on projects, there is nothing better than that, right? Because you're working together, you're navigating the challenges together. That gives me a lot of fuel and passion. We also have a technical coaching 2PE for the Black population, and I coach women. And sometimes it's not just putting together their packets or giving them feedback or connecting them with other sponsors, but sometimes it's just acknowledging how they feel and validating how they feel. And that's just, we're all humans, right? And I think the most valuable thing in any corporation is people, and feeling that connection and helping each other thrive. And it's, if I help people, I feel better, and I feel better if they help me as well.
I love that. And I think you answered, or you went to a great set of comments about how you're giving back to the next generation of Black female and Black technical leaders. Vernetta, how about you? What are some of the things that you take on to pay it forward into that community?
So a couple of things. I do mentoring with NIA as the Oregon Intel Black Leadership Council site rep for Oregon. I mentor some of our NIA board members. I also work locally with a group called the Black Student Success Summit, which targets high school and college Black kids in STEM. So we mentor a lot of people through that program. Personally, that's how I like to give back. And then just in normal relationships, anytime I meet someone Black at Intel, actually, I ask them, I'll say, who are you talking to? Have you gotten to Career Connectors? What's your plan? And if they're like, Career Connectors, I've never heard of it. I'm like, you need to go there, set up some one-on-ones, and let's get you to someone who's either in your space, or make sure that you're not just heads down trying to do the work, but you look up to make sure you have your tribe or your safety net. Because I see that a lot. The young engineers, just anybody new, will come in and go head down. If I do the work well, everybody will notice me and they'll forget to mentor. So that's usually the first thing that I ask people when I meet them new. Okay, who are you connected to? What are you doing to stay connected? Because you don't want to look up when you need help, which happens a lot, and they've not talked to anybody, and it's too late, and they're behind an anvil, if you will. So I try to do that just on a daily basis, and it's been working out pretty good. I like it. Someone yesterday was like, oh, I need to talk to you about, I want to get on this fellow track based off of a talk that was yesterday. So it's a good feeling.
I love it. Inside of Intel, outside of Intel. And I could probably answer this one for Sherry. Sherry, tell us how you pay it forward to the community.
Very similarly to what Vernetta said, I do a lot of mentoring. We have what we call these sister circles. And so that next sort of level of Black females at our site, meet with them pretty regularly and just, talk to them, be available to them, understand where they're winning so we can celebrate them, and also what they're challenged by as well. I do a lot externally as well. I'm part of an organization that supports non-traditional students. So it's, these women that have had challenges in their lives, and for whatever reason, they didn't do the high school to college track, and they're going back to school, and sometimes they're near the age that I am right now, and mentoring and supporting them and, giving them sort of the rah-rah, never give up. I do that. The other thing I'll say is peer mentoring is still important. Those people that are at the same level as you, because, we all have those times or days or, kind of hiccups in our career where, we need that support. We need somebody pushing us and maybe sometimes giving us some straight talk. So that peer mentoring is important. And I think I mentioned earlier, I love talking to students that are about to embark on their career. So I will give a significant amount of my time to recruiting and interviewing and trying to find great talent for Intel and get more diverse people into our great company.
Well, and then I'm going to take the opportunity to highlight your roles in what I had mentioned previously, which is our Black Network of Executive Women. I think it's a pretty special and a pretty unique employee resource group at Intel, not just for the Black community, not just for women, but the intersection and providing focus and attention and development and sponsorship through and with that community, I think is very, very powerful and something unique we do at Intel. Yeah. So with that, I would like to thank Esma and Vernetta and Sherry for their insights and their time. As you can see, what a set of amazing women. What a set of amazing women that have conquered challenges, taken advantage of opportunities, built networks, and reached a very, very high point in their individual careers. But I would be remiss if I didn't wrap it up with the tie that binds everyone on this call, which is a little music and a little dancing